Good afternoon, my name is Yolanda Chan, and as part of my academic training for the degree in the English language, I conducted a research protocol entitled Anxiety as an Impediment in the Oral Production of English as a Foreign Language in Mexico. What prompted me to do this study about anxiety in foreign language learning was that I realized during my internship that the feeling of anxiety prevents high school students from speaking English when they have to hand in an activity or assignment in front of their classmates, and even more so in front of their teachers. For that reason, the objective of this study is to identify the factors that foster foreign language anxiety in students from a public technical high school, how these factors affect their willingness to speak in English, and how students perceive foreign language anxiety, located in the capital city of the state of Quintana Roo. I will present this objective in questions for a better understanding of the subject. The questions are: number 1, what are the factors that foster foreign language anxiety among English technical high school students in a public technical high school, and how those foreign language anxiety impact oral production in the classroom? The question number 2 is: how do students perceive foreign language anxiety, and how do perceptions of foreign language anxiety impact oral production in English? To continue, I would like to give a brief explanation of the theory I chose to support my study objective, as well as provide the reasons why I chose this theory. The theory on which I based this study is as follows: the Foreign Language Classroom Anxiety Theory, established by Howards and Co., 1986, in which they define foreign language anxiety as a distinct complex of self-perceptions, beliefs, feelings, and behaviors related to classroom language learning arising from the uniqueness of the language learning process. In addition, they have identified 3 specific situations that cause foreign language anxiety in English as a foreign language learners. Number 1, communication apprehension, which is a type of shyness characterized by fear of or anxiety about communicating with people. For purposes of this study, this situation can be identified when students who typically have trouble speaking in groups are likely to experience even greater difficulty speaking in a foreign language class where they have little control of the communicative situation, and their performance is constantly monitored. Number 2, test anxiety, which refers to a type of performance anxiety stemming from a fear of failure. Since performance evaluation is an ongoing feature of most foreign language classes, test-anxious students are also relevant to a discussion of foreign language anxiety. For that reason, in this study, test-anxious students can be understood as students who often put unrealistic demands on themselves and feel that anything less than a perfect test performance is a failure. Number 3, fear of negative evaluation is defined as apprehension about others' evaluations, avoidance of evaluative situations, and the expectations that others would evaluate oneself negatively. In this study, fear of negative evaluation in students can be identified as the fear of failing an oral examination. I chose this theory because it has been the most widely used in national and international research that has focused on the study of anxiety in foreign language learning over the years. So it has validity and reliability. Also, because for this study, in which the main objective is to identify the factors that foster foreign language anxiety, I consider that these three variables are the ones that best fit the context in which this study is carried out. Then we have the concepts of this study. According to Moller and Catalano, 2015, a language is considered foreign if it is learned in the classroom and is not spoken in the society where the teaching occurs. For this study, this is the perfect definition of what a foreign language is. This is because the study is made in Mexico, and as it is widely known, people living in Mexico do not have the opportunity to speak a foreign language outside of the classroom where they are learning it. This is what happens with students in public technical high schools. The only time students can speak and practice the foreign language they are learning is when they are inside the classroom, since outside the classroom, students do not need to use it. Then, the definition of learning a foreign language is based on the sociocultural theory by Vygotsky, 1978. Is adequate for this study. This theory says that the most effective way in which a language can be learned is through social interaction, which can be understood as oral production activities, which is the object of a study of this research. Then we have the concept of self-perceptions. And for purposes of this research study, I am interested in the concept of self-perceptions related to the learning process of English as a foreign language. For this reason, I consider the definition from Left, Ongena, and Kolpin, 2010, who established that self-perception is the collection of attitudes and views towards oneself that affects academic performance. From an educational point of view, it is of interest for this research to define how usually students perceive themselves when learning a foreign language. Then, according to Barcelos, 206, beliefs are considered an area of individual learners' differences that may influence the processes and outcomes of English as a foreign language. Beliefs as they are understood in this study will be linked to the learning beliefs of English as a foreign language of EFL learners studying in a technical public high school. The last concept is emotions, and according to Goetz, 203, emotions occurring in the educational context are called academic emotions. He states that such emotions can happen if in 5 different academic situations. For example, during lessons, taking assessments, preparing or doing home tasks independently, learning in a group, and other situations. In the last group, they can be academic situations such as one-to-one tutorials with the teacher to discuss tasks or receive oral feedback. So this definition can be adapted to this study by taking into account these taking assessments mentioned in the definition as oral production activities, which is the focus of this study. Literature review. The research literature of this study consists of 15 studies, most of which are international. The 15 studies were divided into 3 themes that were chosen based on the objective of this study. The first theme is anxiety in learning English as a foreign language, which consists of 2 quantitative studies and 1 qualitative study. From these 3 studies, I can conclude that anxiety in learning English as a foreign language becomes noticeable among students who have to develop an academic activity that involves speaking the language in front of a group of people. The second theme focuses on looking for studies that focus on foreign language learners' perceptions of anxiety in learning English as a foreign language. This section includes 3 qualitative studies, and I can say that unlike the previous section in which the studies had unfavorable results for English language learning and oral production, in this section the results were mostly positive. The last topic is the impact of anxiety in students on the oral production of English as a foreign language. This section includes 3 qualitative studies, and as a resume, teachers cannot expect their students to voluntarily participate in activities involving the use of oral proficiency if the classroom is not a safe place for students. After reviewing the literature that forms part of the theoretical framework of this study, I would like to talk about the method. The approach and design of this study is a qualitative descriptive case study. Because qualitative descriptive study is the method of choice when rigorous descriptions of phenomena are desired. Such a study is especially useful for researchers seeking to know the who, what, and where of events. The case study design was chosen for this study as it will allow for a deeper understanding of the factors that foster foreign language anxiety among EFL learners and how foreign language anxiety impacts oral production in the classroom as it interacts with various social, contextual, and academic factors, which is the general objective of this study. Then we have the context. The present study will be developed in the Centro de Bachillerato Tecnológico Industrial y de Servicios, CEBETIS, for its acronym in Spanish, number 253, which is a public technical high school located in the city of Chetumal in the state of Quintana Roo. Sampling. The participants of this study will be 10 morning shift programming technician students. The sampling is 5 women and 5 men who have previously experienced anxiety from the 4th semester of a programming technician career, aged between 16 and 17 years old. The variables. The selection of the participants in this study will be done based on the students' gender and choosing the EFL students who have experienced anxiety before, which means that the definition of the sampling will be done intentionally. So, to select the students who have previously experienced anxiety, the Foreign Language Classroom Anxiety Scale by Howards and Co. 1986 will be used. This instrument uses a Likert scale to measure anxiety levels in students learning a foreign language. The questionnaire is made up of questions that address the following topics: communication apprehension, test anxiety, and fear of negative evaluation. So this instrument will allow the identification of students who have previously experienced anxiety. Then, to select students who are taking English as a foreign language, a list of students enrolled in English as a foreign language will be requested from the principal of the institution. Then we have the instruments: an interview guide and an observation guide will be employed as instruments in this study because it would be the best manner to allow the participant to give lengthy and in-depth information by providing their perceptions about foreign language anxiety in the English class. The interview guide will be conducted based on the theory of foreign language classroom anxiety established by Howard and Co. 1986 and on the foreign language classroom anxiety scale designed by Howard and Co. 1986, which will be modified to suit the present qualitative study. The original instrument is measured from a Likert scale, as I mentioned before, and since it was designed to be used as an instrument in quantitative research, it is necessary to modify it so it can be used in the present research with a descriptive qualitative approach. And as I mentioned before, the original instrument is made of 13 affirmative sentences. In this case, only 29 will be taken and modified, which will be converted into open-ended questions to give participants the freedom to answer extensively and in depth. These 29 questions focus on the student providing information about the student's perceptions and on 3 specific variables that are found within the theory. These variables are the communication apprehension, test anxiety, and fear of negative evaluation. In addition, an observation guide will be designed to keep special attention on the students' behavior based on their gender, woman and man, and the oral activities they must perform inside the classroom. A difference from the interview in the observation guide that will be used for this study will be based on open-ended questions and will include additional space to allow for emergent themes and annotations. To give this validity and reliability to the interview guide and the observation guide, which are the instruments that will be used for data collection in this study. An analysis will be carried out by 3 experts in the area of anxiety in foreign language learning. These experts are familiar with and have worked with the theory of foreign language classroom anxiety established by Howard and Co. 1986. In addition to needing the approval of the experts, the interview guide should have clear instructions and the questions should be written with concepts adapted to the Mexican context. That is, with simple words that students can understand and that cover the following variables: communication apprehension, test anxiety, and fear of negative evaluation, and students' perceptions towards foreign language anxiety. Then we have the data collection procedure. As for the data collection procedure, a series of steps will be followed. The first step is the data collection will involve the researcher contacting the principal of Cebetis 253 to obtain the necessary permissions to approach the teacher and students from the programming technician career from the 4th semester. Then, an introduction to the teacher and the students of that specific group will be made through a previously arranged meeting during one of the English classes. In this meeting, the importance of the person study will be emphasized and students will be encouraged to participate. Of course, before applying the interviews to the participants of the person study, a pilot of the interview will be conducted with a group of afternoon shift students enrolled in the English course who are in their 4th semester and who meet the variables of gender and anxiety. Also, before administering the interview to each of the students, they and their parents will be asked to sign a consent form in which they authorize the audio recording of the interview and that everything they answer during the interview will be used for the study. Also, it is important to mention that the interview will be conducted in Spanish for the students' comfort. The students will be interviewed in a quiet space outside the classroom where the participants' attention to the interview and the audio recording will not be affected. Then, the observation will be carried out during the 13th week of the course. While the students will be performing the speaking exam, this is because in this way, the researcher can identify if the factors that students mentioned during the interview are present in their oral performance during the speaking exam. To do this, the researcher will sit in the back of the classroom to avoid making the participant overly aware that she or he is being observed, since this could affect her behavior. Each observation will last approximately 5 minutes for each student and will be done using an observation guide, which will focus on identifying the factors that foster foreign language anxiety in the students. These factors are the same variables which are in the theory of foreign language classroom anxiety, established by Howard and Co., 1986. There will be only one observation for each student, as well as one interview for each student. Then, the data analysis. To analyze the data collected through interviews and the observations, the process of informed data by Hernandez, and Baptista, 206, will be used. This is because in data collection, the essential process is that we receive unstructured data, but we give it a structure. After doing that, the data will be processed using the Atlas T software because I consider that this will allow the researcher to be able to handle great quantity of text data compactly and easily. Then, once the data has been transcribed, the researcher will continue analyzing and reviewing the data at every step of the way. Accordingly, the analysis and interpretation of the data from the interviews and observations of the programming technician students will demonstrate what are the factors that foster foreign language anxiety inside the classroom and how students perceive foreign language anxiety in their English class. Finally, we have the limitations. I consider that one of the main limitations that can be found in the present study is that since it is qualitative descriptive study, the results of the research cannot be generalized. There are also limitations according to the interview guide that will be used as one of the instruments for data collection. This is because one of the limitations of this type of instrument in this study with a qualitative descriptive approach is that the instrument on which the interview will be based was created by Howard and Cope in 1986, which means that it is a very old instrument. Therefore, I understand that it may have limitations since the concepts may not be adapted to the current context of this study. Another limitation I found is that the interview guide, since it contains open-ended questions, the students may feel embarrassed and not want to participate. Possible findings. I believe that the results of this study can show the factors that foster foreign language anxiety in students, and third, how these factors affect oral production in English. The factors that I hope to find are communication apprehension, test anxiety, and fear of negative evaluation. Likewise, I think I could find a noticeable difference between men and women's perceptions of foreign language learning anxiety between men and women. And I have the different references I used. And this is the end of this presentation. Thank you for your attention.